Hey, welcome into another episode of the Fat Guy Podcast. I'm the Fat Guy, or most people just call me Brett. I am, however, oftentimes called other things, but we won't get into that. Appreciate you listening to the show today. If you haven't subscribed, like if you get the podcast on Apple Podcasts or whatever, go ahead and subscribe. And you can find us in other places. We're on so many places now, I can't even keep track of them. We're on Spotify. We're on iHeart. Pretty sure we're still on TuneIn, Google Play Store. There's so many places you can get the podcast. So by all means, subscribe and then share it. That helps us out a lot. If you do get the podcast on Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. Leave a 5-star review, or say if we've helped you in some way, or if you've got something out of the podcast. The reason for that is that's how Apple determines, if they share your podcast with other people or not, if you get reviews. So thank you so much for doing that. Been talking about fasting a lot. Last week, I posted on Facebook that I was going to fast for 5 days last week, starting last Sunday. And if anybody wanted to join me on the fast, they could. And I think we had 5 or 6 people join me on the fast. And I know we had one person who fasted longer than they'd ever fasted before. And I think I lost, what was it? I don't remember the number now. It was either 12 or 13 pounds. We had somebody else in the group lose 9 pounds. We had somebody else in the group lose 7 pounds. People talking about how great they felt and stuff. So it was a lot of fun. Then we had a lot of people talk about they wanted to join the next one. And this week I'm not doing a 5-day fast. I'm going to do some 48s and 24s. So not as much as an event. So I didn't really invite anybody to join me. But we had a lot of questions. And the biggest question I get is about what to drink. So that's what we're going to talk about on the show today, is what you drink while you're fasting. And especially we're going to talk about electrolytes and see if we can clear all of that up. So I want everybody to know that what you can drink and what you have to drink, all that depends so much on the length, intensity, and purpose of your fast. So let's talk about the purpose of your fast first of all. So you can fast just to lose weight for no other reason. I just want to fast to lose weight. You can also fast for the many other benefits that, not the least of which is an autophagy. So much research. They just won the Nobel Prize for science for discovering autophagy and understanding it just a couple of years ago. This is relatively new. So what they've learned is when you stop eating and your body stops having nutrients taken in that it has to deal with, that it begins during this time of scarcity, nutrient-wise coming in. We all know your body. Well, I'd say we all know. A lot of people still say when I'm fasting, I'm starving. And I'm like, no, I've got 40-something years of cheeseburgers stored on me to eat. I'm not starving. I'm just not consuming food via mouth. I'm consuming it via the backup method that the good Lord intended. So not everybody understands, apparently, that the body doesn't starve. It just goes to its reserves that you've been saving for hard times, that your body was built to do that. And unfortunately, in today's society, we don't stop eating enough for that to happen naturally like it's supposed to. So, of course, that happens. But what we've learned now about autophagy is the body, there's a signaling that happens, and your body goes, okay, we're going to back up reserves for food, and we're also going to start cleaning up old cells. And so your body needs protein and stuff as well. And so it starts scavenging for these old proteins and stuff from old cells that are damaged, and it recycles them and eats them. That's what autophagy means, self-eating, eating oneself. And so there's also this research coming out now that this is one of the greatest built-in ways of preventing cancer, and could explain why, 100 years ago and further back, that cancer was a rare thing, and why now it's one of the top 3 killers of people in America. We're just never in autophagy. Those damaged cells, they get damaged, they don't work right. Then they go off the rails and they become cancer cells that grow out of control. And they're thinking, back in the olden times, man, people didn't eat 6 times a day. They didn't even eat 3 times a day. A lot of places and under a lot of situations didn't even eat 2 times a day. Just ate 1 time a day. So the body was constantly going through these times of not taking food in by mouth, and so the body just naturally cleaned up those old cells and damaged cells, and they never got a chance to turn into cancer cells. So there's a lot of great research in that. So my whole point is that there's many reasons to fast. I like all the reasons. Okay, so when I fast, of course I want to burn body fat and lose weight, but I also want that autophagy going on. Man, cancer has just been a huge factor in my life. Obviously, I lost my mom to it, lost my grandmother to it. Several close friends and family members have lost to it. I got family members fighting it now. I mean, it's just, I don't know if it's too late in life for me to have any kind of a chance to affect my odds of dying from it, but if there's any way, I don't want it. So for me, autophagy is huge. For you, you may not care that much about autophagy. You may just want the weight loss. And so all this is going to factor into what you can drink and should drink. And then the last factor is the factor for how long you fast. That's going to determine what, how, and why you drink. So all these things being factors is what you need to take into account. So when I give you these, guidelines for what to drink and when to drink, that's what you want to keep in mind. So the first thing obviously is water. So you don't want to consume anything with calories in it. When you're fasting, anything that has a calorie in it, you don't consume it. So that's not just food, that's any kind of a drink. And so the best thing that you can possibly drink is water. The absolute best thing that you can drink is water, and that is your baseline. You start with water and you go from there. So here's what I tell you about water and electrolytes. We're going to cover those first. If you're fasting for a day, if you're fasting for 2 days, and I'd say even if you're just fasting for 3 days, maybe, you don't really need to worry about electrolytes all that much, okay? You don't need to worry about salt and potassium, magnesium, and all that kind of stuff. But if you're going to do a fast that gets into the 4th day and beyond, then you really want to just start out from the get-go getting electrolytes in. So electrolytes is a fancy word for salts. Your body uses various salts to help it run and operate correctly. And it's very important that you, get those salts and to maintain a couple of things. But I'd say the big one is your brain really needs salts to function correctly, and your muscles need salts to function correctly, and the most important muscle being the heart. We all want the heart to beat, right? It's very important. So the other thing I would say is that when people get really, 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 really weak and lightheaded and dizzy from fasting, most of the time that is depletion of salt. So let's talk about what happens to the salts, okay? So if you're going to do an extended fast, if you're going to go more than 3 days, you need to plan that around a time where you're not going to be exerting a lot of energy, okay? So you can fast for 3 days and pretty much carry on all your normal activities, maybe even 4, but somewhere in that range. You can go to work every day, do all the normal stuff you normally do. Once you get into 4th, 5th, 6th days into that area, it's where you will start needing to see some times where you don't have to do quite so much. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't keep going, but you just need to get through. Now, there's a guy on YouTube. You can follow him. His YouTube channel is The Fasting Fat Man. He fasted 150 days. He didn't drink anything but have water and electrolytes for 150 days. Now, he started out at over 500 pounds. He's now under 300 now. And he kept working and did his whole life. But I like to tell people that want to go, especially if it's your first time and you're not sure and the weakness may be an issue and you might be concerned about that, set your fast up where the first day is like Wednesday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you're working like normal. And then Saturday and Sunday, you have the day off and you can just lay around on the couch and watch, football or, whatever's on TV or, just you have the opportunity to be lazy. Especially till you're more accustomed to it and you know your boundaries. So that's just something to keep in mind. But so what happens to the salts? Where do the salts in your body go? And I'm going to go back to calling them electrolytes, but that's what they are. But I really wanted to explain so that electrolytes doesn't sound like such a scary term. It's just salts. And there's different kinds of salt. There's table salt, sodium chloride. There's potassium. There's magnesium. There's other salts as well. Those are the big 3. But what happens? So when you first stop eating, especially if you're a big carb eater, like if you're a keto eater already, if you're really good at keto and you're eating less than 20 carbs a day, when you go into a fast, you're not nearly going to see the effect that somebody that eats a regular high-carb standard American diet is going to see. But your body retains a lot of water to deal with carbs. It has to. To suspend carbs, for every 1 gram of carbs you have in your body, it takes right at 4 grams of water to suspend that. So you retain a lot of water. That's why people eat a lot of carbs, feel bloated. And that's why when you're on a keto diet and you screw up and you go eat carbs, you suddenly feel miserable. You feel bloated, you feel sluggish, all this water, because your body has to start holding on to water to suspend those carbs. So the reverse happens when you go into a fast, right? When you go into a fast, your body starts depleting itself of those carbs. That's the first thing it goes for. The carbs that you have stored, and it's glycogen stored is what it's called, throughout your muscles and inside your liver. It goes to that first for fuel. And once it burns that out over the first day, first 24 to 48 hours, your body no longer needs all this water that it's been holding on to, so it starts releasing it. And so you're going to notice you're going to urinate a lot. It's going to happen a lot, especially day 2, day 3, maybe day 4. So what happens when you do that a lot? Well, you not only when you flush out all that water, you flush out a lot of those salts. Those electrolytes go. And so you got to replenish them. So what do we do? What do we do in that instance? If we're fasting for, I'd say, 3 days or longer, especially 4 days or longer. Well, from day 1, you want to start with the salts. So you want to, very minimum, have a quart of water with a teaspoon of what I call light salt, or I don't call it. That's actually what it is. You can find it in the grocery store. Go to your grocery store and look for light salt. It may be called other things, but light salt is the main thing. But if you see something that's a different kind of salt, where it's light salt or low salt or whatever weird name it might have, look at the label, and if the label is half sodium and half potassium, that's light salt. So you're getting your sodium and potassium. Now, if you're asking why they make this in the store to sell, it's because a lot of people who have illnesses and stuff and can't concentrate high salt levels. Potassium is also salty, but it doesn't have the same effect on the body that sodium has for some people that have that condition. So you're getting half and half. You need both. You need sodium and you need potassium. So that's a beautiful way to get it. Just buy you some light salt. So you want to take a teaspoon of that. You want to put it in a quart of water, mix it up, and you want to drink it. Drink it. Don't sip it all day for the most part. Just go ahead and drink. Don't guzzle it either. Drink it over the course of an hour or whatever, and then just go back to drinking water or some other things that we'll talk about. And I would say that probably survives for most people for a couple of days or so, 2 or 3 days. Now, if you're somebody that works outside, or if you start to notice that you get leg cramps at night, or you're starting to notice that you get starting to feel a little bit weak or whatever, you want to go ahead and up that to doing that twice a day. So do it once in the morning, then drink your water throughout the day, and then do it again in the afternoon, late afternoon or whatever. A quart of water with a teaspoon of that light salt in there. And that should take care of most people. Now, if you're somebody that works out in the sun and you sweat all day, look, you are just oozing electrolytes out. So you want to, jump that up to a tablespoon, do a tablespoon twice a day or whatever. You need to keep those salts in you. And then otherwise you're just drinking water. And so the last thing I want to say about water is people always ask me, how much water? People say you got to drink 64 ounces, 8-ounce glasses a day. Or some people say you got to drink half your body weight in ounces. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, that one is crazy. You're looking at somebody that weighs 400 pounds and somebody's telling them to drink half their body weight, which would be 200 in ounces of water. 200 ounces of water a day? It'll be almost 2 gallons of water a day. That's insanity. So that's a stupid rule I've heard touted around. From my very first beginnings of weight loss, people talked about this drinking half your body weight in ounces, and I tried it. God, when I started out, I weighed like 410, so that was my number, like 200 ounces of water a day. A gallon is 128 ounces or something. So I'd be drinking almost 2 gallons of water a day, which is that's crazy, especially when you're a sedentary person. Like I don't work outside in the sun, not sweating out tons of water all day. That's just insanity. And for, I'd say, a lot of people, even that 8-ounce glasses of water a day is insanity. If you're a sedentary person and you're basically in the house all day, sitting in a recliner, maybe you get up to pee, you get up to cook, and that's about it. You don't need most likely you don't need no 8-ounce glasses of water a day. You might get by with a liter, which is around a quart a day, or somewhere between a quart and 2 quarts or whatever. If you're somebody that works inside in an air-conditioned office all day and your walking consists of going to the, copy machine and to the boss's office, that's pretty much your entire day. You probably won't need a ton of water that day. Just drink when you're thirsty. Make sure you're getting in it at least between a quart and 2 quarts and then adjust from there. But now if you work outside in the sun, you're a roofer or you're a tree trimmer or you're laying down asphalt or any of the numerous jobs that require you to be outside in the sun sweating all day, then yeah, you may not only need the 64 ounces, which is half a gallon, you may need the whole gallon of water a day. So, you just got to judge accordingly. So I think I've covered the water and the electrolytes maybe efficiently there. So beyond that, what can you drink, okay? What can we drink that won't affect our fast? So people ask me about apple cider vinegar a lot. If you want to drink apple cider vinegar, it has lots of benefits, okay? Helps lower blood sugar, helps keep insulin levels down. It has things that help your microbiome, which is your gut health. There's also indications that it helps with the liver. There's a lot of great things about apple cider vinegar. You can have 2 tablespoons of that, whether you want to do that 1 tablespoon twice a day or whether you want to try to get it all in at one time with 2 tablespoons. Just make sure that you're mixing it in a glass of water and drinking it, okay? Because it's very acidic. You want to make sure you mix it in a glass of water and drink it. So if you are only here for the weight loss, 100% you can drink it and it's good for you. If you want to get the autophagy, it's kind of iffy. Because if you get the apple cider vinegar with the mother in it, which has all that floaty stuff in there, well, that floaty stuff in there is a form of proteins, right? So it's not quite known yet if those little proteins will actually trigger autophagy to stop, prevent it. It could. On the one hand, 2 tablespoons or less, you're thinking it's probably not quite enough to stop autophagy. On the other hand, it's not been studied enough to know. So if autophagy is very important to you and you want to be absolutely sure that you're not interfering with autophagy, then you don't want to do the apple cider vinegar with the mother in it, which is the one everybody tells you to get. And it is the best. But the only difference between the mother and not the mother is they strain out those little proteins. You still get all of the insulin lowering benefits. You still get all of the blood sugar lowering benefits. You still get the liver benefit. You still get all the same benefits, maybe just not quite to the degree. So you can, if you really care about autophagy and you want to make sure that autophagy is not an issue, get used to a high quality apple cider vinegar, but not with the mother. You won't see the floaty stuff in it, and drink that during your fast. And anytime you're not fasting, drink the one with the mother in it, okay? So I think that pretty much covers the apple cider vinegar. Other things you can drink, black coffee. That's just black coffee. Tea, unsweetened tea. So, black tea, like your normal good old tea like your grandma used to make, but she put tons of sugar in. That's what sweet tea is. Sweet tea is black tea. So just get you some normal old tea bags and make you some tea. You just don't put anything sweet in it. It's just plain unsweetened tea. You can do green tea as long as it's unsweetened. And by unsweetened, I don't mean go to the store where they have the half gallons of it sweetened with saccharin or sucralose or some kind of fake sweetener. Just plain old unsweetened. You probably have to brew it yourself from tea bags. And then herbal teas that don't have any kind of sweetener or anything added to them. So if you like a particular type of herbal tea, as long as it doesn't have anything added to it and it's just plain old tea, 0 calorie, 0 carb tea, with no kind of fake sweetener or anything in it, unsweetened teas are fine as well. And then the final thing, which I really like, especially after around day 3 or something, where I'm really wanting something with a different flavor, a different kick, this is good for flavor, and it's also good for helping you with electrolytes, and that's pickle juice. Now, what are the rules for pickle juice? So you don't want to drink any more than about 4 ounces of it, okay? So 3 to 4 ounces of it, which if you have a scale or something, you can measure it out. If you know you have an 8-ounce glass, make sure you did it, because a lot of people think these red Solo cups are 8 ounces. They're not. They're like 18 ounces. So make sure you know the ounces of the glass you're using. If you got an 8-ounce glass, that'd be half of it, be 4 ounces, so that or less. The other thing about pickle juice is when you buy your pickles for the pickle juice, make sure you check that label and there's no sugar in the ingredients. There can't be any sugar in there. Basically, it should just be cucumbers, vinegar, salt, maybe some kind of preservative, like, I don't know, polysorbate, so I don't know, but no sugar. Okay? And if you do that, then the pickle juice is fine. But again, no more than 4 ounces a day. So that means like one time a day you can have your little 4-ounce cup of it. And then the final thing people ask me about all the time is vitamins. So liquid vitamins are out because they usually put some kind of sweetener in liquid vitamins to make them tolerable. Kids' vitamins, et cetera, et cetera. But if you get a good adult vitamin that doesn't have anything in it but the vitamin and maybe a little bit of filler and maybe there's some gelatin in the shell they pack it in or whatever, that's fine. You don't really need vitamins for a 5-day fast. You're going to be fine. You don't really probably need vitamins even for a 7-day fast or a 10-day fast. But, if you're going to do a 5-day fast and you're concerned about vitamins, you can take them. Again, we're back to the questionability about, does it affect autophagy? Autophagy is triggered when the body senses that there's no nutrients coming in for an extended period of time. And it's estimated that that's somewhere around 48 hours where that kicks in the strongest. So after about 48 hours of sensing no nutrients coming in, the body will start scavenging for damaged cells with this autophagy process. Obviously, vitamins are nutrients. Okay, obviously there's a requirement of a breakdown in the body. So if you want to be 100% sure you're getting the benefits of autophagy, then you don't want to take the multivitamin. Okay, if autophagy is not so important to you and you're just mainly here for weight loss, then vitamins are fine. They're not going to affect the weight loss in any kind of a way. And so to that end, the last comment I'll make about the autophagy thing is that the longer you've been fasted, the more type things you could tolerate that will not affect the autophagy, because the process will be so strong at that point. Once you make it to 7 days of fasting, popping a multivitamin or 2 a day probably isn't going to affect autophagy no matter what, because you're just so deep into ketosis and so deep into autophagy. The same would be the case for the apple cider vinegar with the mother. If you're 7 days into a fast, the very small amount of proteins that are in the apple cider vinegar, you're going to be so deep into ketosis and so deep into autophagy that there's just really near zero chance that it affects autophagy. So I would keep that in mind as well. I really hope that this, answer you guys' questions. The last thing I'd say, and I really should have said it at the beginning of the podcast, I hate to be all technical, but look, I'm not a doctor. I don't got no medical training. All I can do is share my advice with you from my personal experience and share my advice with you from my years and years of studying this stuff. I just study it endlessly. It shocks most people if I ever tell them how many hours a week I do spend studying things like fasting and ketosis and keto and low carb and all aspects of not just weight loss, but generic health in general from what we consume. So I do spend a lot of time in it. But look, it's your health, it's your life, it's your body. Consult with a doctor. Now, if you have a doctor that says, "Oh, no, you can't fast, that's hard," find a new doctor. Find a new doctor that's not stupid enough to say fasting is harmful and that will work with you. But for me, unless I'm getting into a 10-day fast or something, I'm never visiting a doctor. Maybe if I get into the 10-day range, for me personally, I might consider going and getting an electrolyte test. Most likely, it probably depends on how I felt. If I felt okay, I probably wouldn't. If I was starting to feel a little extra weak or something, or maybe having the muscle cramps and types things, I might start going to the doctor and say, "Hey, give me some electrolyte tests and anything else you think you might want to test me for," knowing that I'm extended fasting. But definitely the upfront approval if you don't know the condition of your health. But look, if your doctor can't give you a valid, specific medical reason for you. In other words, if he can't point out some kind of specific disease or ailment or issue you have that is in directly contrast with fasting, if just in general he says fasting is bad, if just as a general term he thinks it's stupid to fast, then find a new doctor. But by all means, if you have a doctor that go, well, you have this disease and fasting is deadly for people with this type of disease. If that, then of course, you probably shouldn't fast. But man, the number of health conditions that would make fasting dangerous is so small. The odds of you having it is not zero, but it's close to zero. But you want to be sure. You always want to check with the doctor. That's all I can say about that. I want to thank you so much for listening. Share the podcast, and you might help somebody else. And this week, which, you may be listening to this podcast 10 years in the future from now, so it doesn't really matter what this week is. But if you follow us on the social medias, on Facebook is when I announce I'm going to start my fast on a Sunday if you want to join in with that. If you do, you'll comment on my post talking about I'm going to start like a 5-day fast and ask if anybody wants to join. So what happens is if you comment under there that, yeah, you want to join, I will add you to our Facebook Messenger group. So it's a group on Messenger where we can message back and forth throughout the week, encourage each other, find out how everybody's doing, answer questions, and get through it together. So you got to be following me basically on Facebook for that. So my username on all the social medias is Fat Guy Podcast. So no matter if that's Facebook or, Instagram or Twitter or whatever, Fat Guy Podcast, follow me. Share. Thanks so much for listening, and good luck in your continued journey with your health and weight loss. I appreciate you so much.